Yes, this is Coach Rod from ANSC 332, and that's, of course, Environmental Physiology of Domestic Animals. And with this videotape, I want to start a series of reviews that I'll do at the end of each week. The more I think about this, the more beneficial it could be to all of us, myself included, but any student, and then any student that might have added the course late, like this week, the first week you may not have even been there, and then people that are under quarantine or go to a funeral or have some of those unpredictable things happen to them, I guess would be the best way to say. So yes, I'm going to start doing this, and I am going to move that out of the way and show you an email. Sorry for the voice here. I'm going to show you an email that I sent out to the class because we have a change in the meeting room. And in fact, there's the new meeting place, Crichton Hall 1011. I did find out a few days ago that some of my emails that I sent out on a listserv that the university made after I requested it had a bug in it. And so if you said, I never received some of those first emails, I did find out recently that yes, there was a bug in their program, and when people added and dropped the course, it did not change the listserv. That's how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be like if somebody adds a course, now they're on the listserv. If somebody drops a course, they won't get any more emails about that class. It wasn't doing that. So anyway, I know your official schedule will say Lily G126, but that room was going to be so crowded before and after us, and it's not very good for a small group discussion or for some interaction, so I was able to reserve Crichton 1011. And so then the next thing I want to say is I sent out to the email that we have it for a 2-hour span, and some people misinterpreted that the class would start at 11 and go to 1. No, I only did that because if somebody wants to come early and ask me questions or take a snooze on or eat their lunch, they can. Or if it's snowing out, you can come into the room at 11 o'clock. And actually, a little secret, you could actually come in at 10:30 because no one has the room from 10:30 on those days. And so there's a 2-hour span. You can come and chat, ask me questions, chat with your friends, study another subject. But then I will say that the official testable material for our course will start at 11:35. If you've had me for any other classes, you know that the official start like 11:30 doesn't give you time to come from a class that ended at 11:20. So it's a little bit asinine to have people running around for 10 minutes and leave a class and come to a class. And so, classes shouldn't start any earlier than 11:35 if they're let out at 11:20. But anyway, don't get me started on that. So the testable material will go from 11:35 to 12:20. And ignore this now. I mean, you can stay till 1 o'clock. The first week, I didn't want somebody showing up at 1 when things were moving. Okay, so then there's my website, rodalrich.com. I'll show you what that front page looks like. Go to that. There's a copy of the syllabus there, but I also did attach a copy of the syllabus there before the website was available. And I consider myself a coach, maybe a learning coach. Love to help students learn, and I'm here to help you. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of that copy of the email, and I should say, well, it's fresh in my mind, I will try not to send you very many emails during the semester. I'd rather have you go to the website and look for some announcement that I put on my web page, and that way you don't have to worry about losing an email. If you're like me and somebody sends me a very important email, and where do I put it? And after a while, it'll be lost and so forth. Now, I saw this someplace and did a photo grab of it, but it's really important what we learn. How do we learn? And of course, everybody has their own styles. I'm more of a graphic person. Draw me a picture of something. Don't do verbally. Just, show me a picture and I think I can understand it. But William Glasser, who I don't know, I should look it up. I don't know if he's a historical figure or educational psychologist. I'll have to say I don't know. But when I saw this, it rings true for what I know about learning. So we learn 10% of what we read. Okay, wow. What does that mean for textbooks? 20% of what we hear, and 30% of what we see. I'm more of a graphic person. But then you combine all those, and we do maybe remember or learn, and that's, not sure what they're really talking about there, but we learn 50% of what we see and hear. Okay, so I can draw something on the board or talk about carbon monoxide or whatever. But then if the students discuss it back and forth in interaction, 70% is learned. And if you experience something, that's 80%. But what I really like is if you teach something to somebody else, you're much more likely to learn it. And I'm going to say long-term learning. Meaningful learning is maybe a better term. Meaningful. So reading, hearing, this is like reading a textbook. The second one is like hearing lectures. Lectures are boring because everybody's passive except for the speaker. And the learner should be active is my philosophy, and that's, well known. And so the more active you can be down here, the better off you are as far as learning the material. So now, the syllabus is at the website, and I'm going to make a point of pointing out the website. My website is here. I'm going to circle it in red, rodulrich.com. So somehow if you remember my name, you can always remember my website. Now I do have some redundant websites. Let's say rodulrich.com goes down. You have two other places to go. rodulrich2.com. That's pretty easy to remember. And this third one is not as easy to remember. bravehost.com. But the point is, if one website is down, that's not an excuse not to read the material for tomorrow's quiz, right? Because there are other sites. They're redundant. So, we will meet at 11 from 11:20. Sorry. It says 11 to 1, but the official class starts at 11:35 and goes to 12:20. But I put that in here so just to indicate, hey, you want to come and chill, ask me questions on the last quiz, whatever. The assessments are interesting. Notice it doesn't say 10 quizzes at 50 points and 3 tests at 100 points. This semester I'm doing what I've always wanted to do. Make a combination of in-class exams, quizzes, and take-home material. We're going to end up with 1,000 points at the end of the semester, but you should know that early in the semester, like on Wednesday, January 19th, we're having a quiz. And by the way, I'm recording this on the 18th, so that's tomorrow. We're going to have a quiz, but it's going to be in class. And you might even be able to be helped by a fellow student, and it's not going to have many points. So early in the semester, when we're getting used to each other and getting settled in, your liability is less, let's put it that way, than if things start out with a 100-point test and another 100-point. It's going to be graded, a graded format. Not being graded means A, B, or C, but it's going to be smaller, and then larger, then larger. Anyway, so that's the syllabus. I want to make sure everybody can see that. I got a lot of email addresses there. And when you do go to my website, this is the front page. And I want to make sure you know where the course material is. So this is rawhours.com. Then, if you click on courses, hopefully this is showing up. I'm up in the upper, almost right-hand corner, not quite. If you click on courses, then it goes to a page where the courses are listed that I teach, and I teach 5 during the year. So I teach, every semester I teach more than one course. But if you click on that, then it's going to show you the course listings, and then you can click on Environmental Physiology of Domestic Animals. So I'm just reiterating that. Click on courses, then click on the course name, and that will take you to the home page of the course. In this case, it's Environmental Physiology of Domestic Animals. Now on day 1, which was the 10th of January, you may not have been there. I can't say you didn't miss much, but I'll just say we didn't do anything gradable. This was a diagnostic assessment. Assessments can be of different types, and diagnostic means the instructor is going to make a bunch of questions and see what you know. This had no grade on it. And if you notice, I didn't even want a person's name. I wanted an honest thing. But you might want to read that. It's also available on the website. And you can tell it's mostly about environmental physiology. Now, maybe not the body's thermostat, yes. But look at hardware disease in cattle. You might say, what's that? That sounds weird. Pathology of mare reproductive loss syndrome. Anyway, all these questions trying to get at what you know about environmental physiology in a sense. Most people haven't had a lot of it, so that's great. Now, another thing we did on day 1, which was the 10th of January, is I had this photo on a canvas print, and I brought it into class. Obviously I have digital because here it is digital, and I just had people guess what this was, and it was very interesting to get guesses. Some people had no idea. I can explain a little bit. Obviously, this is during surgery. Somebody's arm is there, or hand and arm. This is some structure. There's surgical drapes. There are the drape holders, so forth and so on. And I had some good guesses. And now I want to reveal the answer, and I did in the second day of class, which is 112. But anyway, this would be referred to, and I guess it does go there, but I'll make it here so it looks like. It's called a turgid ovine uterus. And I don't want to belabor the point, but turgid means taut, maybe somewhat hard to the touch. You can kind of see this thing is standing up basically. Ovine is a adjective that refers to sheep, and uterus, of course, this is the reproductive structure that carries a fertilized egg through the length of gestation, and then is the object or the structure that then will expel the fetus at the time of birth. So this is a uterine horn. This is another uterine horn. I don't want to belabor this point, but the point is this is a turgid ovine uterus, and most people will never, ever see this in real life. You'll often never see another picture of it in your whole life, because this is about 12 hours after the onset of estrus as determined by a ram with a marking crayon, and it was an experiment. I don't want to get into that right now, but the point is turgid. Then a teaching point here is, okay, let's see, maybe I'm trying to get rid of that. Okay, here it is. I don't know where that went. Anyway, I wanted to make a point, turgid versus flaccid. These are antonyms of each other. Turgid, meaning hard to the touch, and it ends up being, in this case, it's under the influence of estradiol 17 beta from the ovary. And then flaccid is just the opposite. Not hard to the touch, not firm to the touch, very soft and mushy. So that was the learning on that. Every day we learn. Another thing we did the first week is I talked about how knowledge is stored in the brain. It's called knowledge domains. Everything you know about a specific topic tends to be connected to other things in that specific topic, about that specific topic, if you have meaningful learning. And so I'm going to go through this rather fast, but there are knowledge domains, let's say about, I'll use the example, carbon monoxide. That's the first thing we're studying. So although this is something I grabbed off the internet, I just want to say, in my case, I have a knowledge domain, a subject matter domain, and that would be representing my knowledge about carbon monoxide. Okay? And there's other domains that interact with it. This might be gases. And so gases overlap with carbon monoxide. And there might be things about writing about carbon monoxide and what things have happened in the community. Anyway, the point is, your knowledge is tends to be stored together if it's meaningful knowledge. And so then I was in the class now, I was talking about statements of fact. These are statements that can be judged to be true or false, and oftentimes they're a proposition. And down here, a proposition is a statement that people can examine in order to decide whether it's true. And then you could add or false. And the thing is, it's used in law a lot, but it also is used in learning. So then what we did, and so since this is a recap, here's some examples of statements of fact I found on the internet. Your heart pumps blood through the body, okay? Now, I would maybe say this, there's a better way to say that. The heart pumps blood through the body, you can. I mean, it's kind of assumed it's going to be through your body. Although if you're injured, your heart pumps blood outside your body. Anyway, the leaves of growing plants are usually green, okay? Some people keep dogs as pets. 1 liter of water weighs 1 kilogram, yes. And so these are statements of fact that you could put on a page. Now, these aren't related, so you wouldn't put them on some page that was about some topic. But if you look at my learning video, it's called the Atone system. Here's some more. That Atone system would show you how to generate these things. So here's some more. Your heart pumps blood through the body, yeah. Leaves are usually green. People use their legs to walk. Some people keep dogs as pets. 1 liter weighs 1 kilogram. And these are all objects, or all prepositions, I should say, that can be judged to be true or false. I'm not much of a historian. The 3rd president of the U.S. was Thomas Jefferson. I'd have to take your word for that. I'm terrible at history. They made it so boring when I was in high school. My mind shut. So now I just want to give some examples of statements of fact about carbon monoxide. Our first gas, we're not going to talk about many gases, but we're going to talk about gases that are companion animals and domestic animals can be exposed to, and then as a safety thing, what we can be exposed to. So that's what I'm doing here. So, carbon monoxide toxicosis can be confused with flu-like illness. Toxicosis is a condition of poisoning, can be confused with flu-like illness. That is so true, and unfortunately, some people are in a home where there's high levels of carbon monoxide, and they think they have the flu. And ask me about the stories I know. Now, here's some more that I just produced, I should say, not made up. These are not made up. Carbon monoxide is odorless and colorless, and that's a big problem. Because if you come home and you have high levels of carbon monoxide, and it's colorless and odorless, then you have no idea what's going on. So that begs for a detector, and I'll say detectors in homes. I'm a big advocate of detectors, and the next little topic we'll have in a few seconds will be about that. Carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is usually abbreviated capital H, little b, with 200 times the affinity of oxygen. So think of you're shaking hands with a toddler. That's what oxygen represents. Even the toddler, if they tried to squeeze down on your hand, would not have much of an effect, and you could break away from the handshake. Now, 200 times that might be a weightlifter, somebody that does a lot of things with weights and they have muscles all over. And so carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin like the weightlifter person, women or men, versus the toddler, oxygen. And that's a terrible thing. It's kind of like, I don't know, a freak of nature, I guess, because why in the world? Anyway, carbon monoxide is, produced with imperfect combustion of fossil fuels. So, carbon monoxide detectors should be placed in every level of the home. I would also add a thing, should be placed in every bedroom, plus every level. It's like, what is your life worth? CO kills 400 plus people each year in the United States, and that's 400 people by accident. And that's terrible. So now I just want to talk about detectors of carbon monoxide. I know if you're in my class, there is an assignment that has you read different poisonings and so forth, facts. Here's a carbon monoxide detector. I don't have any financial dealings with Kitty, if that's how they pronounce her name, but it's just an example of a detector that I would have in my house. Now, my house is very interesting because we have no fossil fuels. It's completely electric. So then you might say, Rod, do you have any carbon monoxide detectors in your house? Rod would say, yes. Ask me about it later. Anyway, this is a detector you can buy at Walmart. There's many you can buy at Walmart or Kmart or whatever. Some are better than others in my estimation. So I just want to talk about that for a second. I think every carbon monoxide detector in a home should have a digital readout. Okay? And the readout, maybe I can enlarge that, it's always parts per million. It's hard to see that. But it's parts per million is what you detect carbon monoxide in. And it's really funny. It's not funny, but in my class tomorrow, most people listening to this will be in my class, we're going to calculate how you do percent into parts per million. And you'll see how small parts per million really are, right? 1 part per million is 1 part in 1 million parts. It's like 1 penny of 1 million pennies. And the thing is, carbon monoxide starts getting bad, let's say 30 parts per million. So that's 30 pennies in 1 million pennies. It's like, it seems very small, but remember the 200 times affinity is the kicker. Doesn't take much carbon monoxide to prevent your hemoglobin from carrying any oxygen that you're breathing. So parts per million parts per million in a digital display, and then a display, or a detector I should say, should always have a peak level button. What does this do? Well, the display shows real time. So you get up in the morning and it will show something. You go to bed at night, it will show something. But what it's showing in this display is what it's detecting, and I hate to say right now because there's a lag period, but let's say on average, this is what it's showing. Yeah, and I should maybe clarify that next week. Anyway, parts per million. But maybe during the night when you were sleeping at 3 a.m., the value went up because winds were different, or another furnace went on, or if you're living in an apartment, your neighbor took a shower and their hot water heater did something. Anyway, when you press this peak level, this readout is going to tell you what the peak level it's ever seen. So let's say it's sitting at 4 parts per million, which is good. And you hit the peak, and if it says 35, that's kind of bad. And then, of course, you can test it to see if your detector's operating, and then it will reset that peak value. So it'll bring it back to 0 and then so forth. Here's the little, let's say, air inlet that has the detector for the carbon monoxide. So I like something with a digital readout. Now I'm going to show you this one again because it has another feature I like. And the feature about that one, it plugs into the wall. This picture is not as clear as the other one. But there it is, reading 0. And remember, this is the peak button, this is the reset button, this is the test button. And it's plugged into a wall. That's great. And that gets to the point, carbon monoxide detectors do not have to be near the ceiling. In class, we talk about the density of carbon monoxide, and it's very close to air. It's just slightly less dense than air. But it's so close to air that means you can have your detector any place, because any place in the room there's air, the carbon monoxide will mix and be there. Not on the ceiling, not on the floor, not in the middle, but all over. So here's another thing about this detector. You might say, wow, it plugs in the wall, that's neat, but what happens when the power goes out? If you've lived in some states like Texas or almost any place now, power is lost for a while. Like just last week where I live out in the country, power was out for an hour and a half for no apparent reason. I don't know if a branch hit a power line or some piece of a squirrel jumped into a transformer. Who knows? Texas, if you remember that last winter, they had a very cold spell come by, and the power plants quit, and I don't know, it was days. Anyway, so the point is, it plugs into the wall. That's neat. But what if the power goes out? Lo and behold, in this device is a battery backup. So the power goes out, and the 9-volt battery will take the place of the electricity. And I'm not sure how long the 9-volt battery lasts, but I'm sure it'll last, for most cases, probably more than a year, but don't quote me on that. Read the instructions. But neat little detectors, yes. Okay, so now my last point is, let's look at values of carbon monoxide that maybe are poisonous. Sorry. So here we go. Here's a table I found. Not everything has the same numbers, but someplace around 30, 35 gets to be a warning. You know, that digital readout. I have a videotape that shows other more accurate detectors. But if you are in some place where there's 30, 35, that's not good. You're not going to die right away, but the point is you'll get a headache and dizzy within 6 hours. So let's say that's in your home. Well, you go to bed, you're in your home. If somebody stays at home, like a house, somebody stays at home, whether it's the man or woman or the kids or whatever, Well, you get a headache and dizziness within 6 hours. Well, then what if after 24 hours? 100 parts per million. Terrible. That's a terrible number. Slight headache in 2 to 3 hours. This one, you might be sick for days, flu-like symptoms. 100, that's going to be terrible. And 100, God bless this table. Look at, that's 0.1%. A tenth of a percent in the air will cause you big problems. 200, and you can read the table and you can look at that thing, but that's crazy. Anything above 30, I start getting worried. I always carry a carbon monoxide detector with me when I go traveling. And one of the hotels I stayed at, when the heat was running, it went up to at least 15 to 20. And I said to myself, well, if it gets any higher, I'm calling the front desk and tell them they need to do something. A lot of stories. Okay, anyway, that's my wrap up for this week. Take care. We'll see you in class.